and welcome to the Wayfaring Panda. I'm Annette. Today I'm making a jungle theme card, and I started with a card base that I already made, and I cut out this paper from Echo Park Jungle Safari, and I cut that out with a Lawn Fawn stitch die to be the same size as the card front, which is an A2 size, 5.5 by 4.25, and I just glue that on with my Nuvo Deluxe glue. This video is part of the Embossing Folder Friday YouTube hop, and it's sponsored by Joy Wilson at the Handmade Happiness group. If you're a card maker and have a YouTube channel, you can find us on the Facebook group Handmade Happiness, and you're welcome to join in our hops. So this theme is animals, so I picked this old Darice embossing folder. It has animal tracks, and I'm going to ink it up with some distress ink, and I'm using carved pumpkin, and I'm going to put it on with my blending brush. I find a lot of people do put it on just directly, but then I find it has a weird texture when I do that. So if I use my blending brush, it goes on smoother. And I'm just kind of playing with it at the beginning, trying to decide if I want to do it on the emboss side or the deboss side. So I decided to deboss, which is where the indentations go into the paper, because I want the paw prints to be darker. There was a darker orange spot on the side of the card, so to fix that, I'm going around all the edges with my distress ink. And actually, I liked how that turned out. Then I use my Nuvo Deluxe glue to glue this panel onto the center of the card. And I like using the glue because sometimes I don't get it quite centered, and that gives you a chance to reposition the paper before it dries. To make the main elements for my card, I'm going to use these dies from Elizabeth Craft Designs. And the first one is the Safari Jeep. So I just use the dies and cut out Bristol Smooth cardstock, and I'm going to color them with my distress inkers. So I'm just using this blending brush to blend on some ink. Now you could color these with markers or colored pencils, or you could just cut out colored paper. For the Jeep, I decided to use the Shabby Shutters, which is a green color, and I decided to go with green because that's one of the colors that's in the pattern paper. Also, this does kind of remind me of a safari because when Disney's Animal Kingdom first opened, I was living in Florida and I worked at Disney's Animal Kingdom. And my uniform was this shade of green, and also had brown and tan. So of course it reminds me of a safari, and my main job there was teaching people about conservation. Then I use pumice stone to color the rectangle piece, or sort of rectangular, and I don't know what you call it, but it goes on the front of the car. And I also use the same color to color the metal pieces where the headlights will go. After I finish coloring them with the distress ink, then I use my Nuvo Deluxe glue to glue them onto the car. And you can easily just look at the picture that comes with the dies to see how to put it together. I cut the bumper and the grill plate, or maybe it's the radiator, and the mirrors out of silver cardstock, so I don't need to color those, and I just glue those directly onto the Jeep. And the mirrors, I just put a little bit on the front of it and attach those behind. The headlights are the two smaller circles, and I'm just using mustard seed distress ink for that since it's a bright yellow. And I find with the small pieces, it's best just to kind of pounce it on, because if you try to rub it, first of all, it's kind of small. You'll pull the paper. The last pieces are the two tires and the steering wheel, so I'm just pouncing on some distress ink, and this is black soot. And it's really hard to get it all an even color, especially on the tires, but actually I think that's good because I've never seen a tire be an even color anyway, and being out on the safari, it'd be even more so that way. One thing I like about these dies is they have a lot of details. So on the tires, there's actually like an embossed area where it shows the grooves on the tire to make it look more realistic. To glue on the tires, it's easiest to put the glue on the back of the Jeep and just run it along the side, kind of in a U shape, where the tire will be attached. And that's a great thing about using glue, because then you can kind of move the tire to get it in the right place. For the steering wheel, I just put a little bit of glue on the bottom of the steering wheel and attach it to the back of the Jeep. So you want to put the glue on the front where you colored. Now, of course, we need a driver for our Jeep, so I cut out the 2 elements you need to make the safari hat. And I'm coloring the safari hat with shabby shutters like I did before, and then I'm using tea dye for the little band that goes across the hat. And that's so that will work with the other elements, because my Jeep has the green and then the tan I'm going to use on the animal that'll be the driver. And the great thing about these accessories is they make all their things a similar size, so all their accessories, all the safari ones, but also if you get any of the forest animals, all the elements work together. For the driver, I'm going to use this lion and tiger die, which most of the pieces are the same. There's just a little bit of different pieces if you want to cut out stripes or for the mane. But I'm not using any of those because I'm going to make a leopard. And instead of coloring it all, I'm going to use this leopard paper from the same paper pack that I used earlier. Now on another video, I also used this to make a snow leopard, and on that one, I used a stamp that stamped a leopard print, but just did kind of black and then colored it with Copic markers to make it gray. And I will link that video at the end of this one. I'm cutting out his head, his body, his front legs, and his tail from the patterned paper. And the other pieces I'll cut out from the Bristol Smooth cardstock, because those I don't want to have spots. Now, I didn't notice that I had his body facing the wrong way, so it didn't cut. And when I took it out, I still didn't notice. I'm like, why didn't this cut? So I did have to run it through again. I'm using my tea dye distress ink, which is the same color I used for the band on the hat. And I'm using that to color his muzzle, his inside ears, and his paws. Now this one worked best with just pouncing because all these pieces are very small. So here's an interesting tidbit to tell leopards and jaguars apart. I always knew, of course, if you're in where they live, that jaguars live in the Western Hemisphere, mostly Central America and part of South America. They used to live in parts of North America, but they're extinct there. And leopards live in the Eastern Hemisphere, so places like Asia and Africa. But if you see them at the zoo, how do you know? Well, looking at this paper, you can see the little rosettes that it has. It doesn't have any spots inside those rosettes, so it's a leopard. Jaguars will have spots, and some of their rosettes are maybe even more than one spot inside the rosette. And that's one of the main differences. Another difference, but it's more behavioral, is that jaguars tend to like to swim because they live in the rainforest. So, of course, they have to be able to swim. Although they do need to stay away from pythons that may be in the water. And if they live in an area where there's alligators. However, leopards generally do not like to go in water because most cats don't like water. I colored his eyes and his nose with the black soot, and I accidentally did the same with his tongue. So I flipped it over since it's symmetrical and then just put on some spun sugar. If you were going to assemble the whole cat, you would put paws on the body part on the bottom where his back paws are. However, since he's going to be driving, that won't show, so I'm only going to put the paws on his front legs. So I'm just going to put a little bit of glue on his neck and I'll attach the head. The die embosses a line for his mouth, so I just use that as a guide to draw his mouth with a black pen. Then I just use my glue to glue on his muzzle, his nose, tongue, and the inside of his ears. Then I checked and see how I wanted his hat. I decided it looked best sitting below his ears with his ears sticking up above the hat than it did to put it on top. And so I just put a little bit of glue up on the top of his head and put down the hat. Now that I have his hat on, I can see where to put his eyes, so I go ahead and use my tweezers to put on his eye. Now I lost one of the eyes. I did find it later, but it was messed up, so I just made another one and put it on. This next part, my camera went off, so what I did is I just put on the paws, which you can see in the video, and then I tried to figure out where I wanted his legs positioned. Normally you'll put them down, so it looks like these paws are on the front, but I wanted his paws up so we can use those to hold on to the steering wheel. So when the camera went off, I figured that out. So here's how he normally looks. The legs are usually up, but I put the arms up so he's touching, and then I just attach him to my Jeep, and then I put glue on the back and attach the whole thing to my card. Then I also had to add some more glue to the top of the window so that it would stay down. Of course, you could stop here, but I decided to add a little bit more detail, so I used my white gel pen to add a little bit of sparkle to his eyes because I needed them to show up a little bit more. And then I add these half pearls from Buttons Galore and More, and these are peach color, so that goes really well. So I just laid these out, and then I had to unstick my glossy accents with a pen, and finally got it out, and it came out a lot. So then I just used my tweezers to dip all the pearls into a little pool of glossy accents and put them onto my card. I'll put a list of all the products that I'm using in the description below. Some of these will be affiliate links. They don't cost you anything extra to use, but I do get a small commission from any sales that the links generate, and that helps support my blog and my videos, and I greatly appreciate that. As I mentioned earlier, this is part of a YouTube hop, so I'll have a list of all the participants in the description below. Please hop along to the next person and get some more ideas of how to use embossing folders, and I'm sure you'll get a lot of ideas for card making. And if you'd like to join us, just please check the link for Handmade Happiness. I want to thank you so much for watching. If you like the video, please give it a like. And if you're not already a subscriber, I'd really appreciate if you can subscribe to my channel. If you are a subscriber, I want to thank you for your continued support. I hope everyone has a fantastic day.